All right. Uhuru. Uhuru, and welcome everyone. And thank you for joining us tonight for the St. Pete stop and the final stop of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement's Days of Reparations to African People Speaking Tour. We are very glad to be concluding this tour here in the city of African Resistance, St. Petersburg, Florida. So my name is Jamie Simpson, and I'm your MC for tonight. And we're going to start off with a couple of chants. I'm going to open up. I'm going to say unity through reparations, and I hope that you'll join in with me. When I say unity through reparations, when I say unity through, you say reparations. Unity through reparations. Unity through reparations. Uhuru. So our next chant of the night, when I say hands off, you say Uhuru. And for the second part of that chant, when I say hands off, you say Africa. All right, so the first response is Uhuru, the second is Africa. Hands off, Uhuru. Hands off, Africa. Uhuru. Now, because this event is being held also in solidarity with the righteous and just resistance of the Palestinian people, when I say hands off Palestine, you say free, free Palestine. Hands off Palestine. Free, free Palestine. Hands off Palestine. Free, free Palestine. Let's take it through one more time. Unity through reparations. Unity through reparations. All right, Uhuru and then Africa. Hands off Uhuru. Hands off Africa. All right, hands off Palestine. Free, free Palestine. Hands off Palestine. Free, free Palestine. All right, Uhuru. Uhuru, comrades. Well done. Well done. So I want to give a really warm welcome to everyone for coming out here tonight. It is so great to see so many familiar faces, and to those of you coming out here for the first time, and I want to say Uhuru and welcome to those of you tuning in to the St. Pete stop of the Drop the Charges Against the Uhuru 3 Days of Reparations to African People Speaking Tour online as well. My name is Jamie Simpson, and I'm the local organizer of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And just to say, I met this movement in 1999 at a tribunal held here in Aquaba Hall against or for police brutality for the African community to be able to testify to the conditions that they experience in this city. And I will never forget that experience. I will never forget the first time I heard Chairman Omali Yeshitela sum up this question of genocide as it has been experienced by African people for the past 600 years. And at that time, when I came here, it was not long after the 1996 rebellions that happened, the just rebellions waged by African people in this city following the murder of Tyrone Lewis, an 18-year-old young African man gunned down in a traffic stop right down the street from here. And that happened on October 24th, 1996. We're at October 26th, 2023. And there were a couple of nights of just uprisings, of rebellions on the part of the African community. And then a couple of weeks later, November 13th and 14th, I believe, was what is known as the Battle of St. Pete, when the city of St. Petersburg and really the state of Florida, the US government brought its full wrath down on this building, attacked this building with every canister of tear gas they had in the city, 300 armed to the teeth colonial troops, and the African community rose up and they defended this building when the city of St. Petersburg tried to essentially burn it to the ground. So I just want to acknowledge that we're having this event. I'm really terrible. Is it 27 years since the murder of Tyrone Lewis today? So I just want to give a moment to acknowledge that and the righteous resistance of the African community of St. Petersburg. So that's why this city is known as the city of resistance. So of African resistance. The Day of Reparations is a campaign designed to build unity from the white community with a movement of reparations as a revolutionary demand of the African People's Socialist Party. The Days of Reparations to African People is a 5-city tour featuring members of the Uhuru 3. It's also a rallying cry in unity with the Hands Off Uhuru movement's counteroffensive, which was put in place the day after the FBI attacks on July 29th, 2022, including a vicious attack right here on this building. And it is a call to white people to join in solidarity with the growing movement under the leadership of the African and colonized peoples of the world to demand hands off Chairman Omali Yeshitela, hands off Uhuru. So the Days of Reparations to African People is also designed to promote the most recent book by Chairman Omali Yeshitela, The Verdict is in, Reparations Now. And that's available right over there on that table. If you haven't already gotten your copy, I encourage you to do that. And we always start off our events by acknowledging that we do this on stolen land. We are here tonight on the stolen land of the Tocobaga and Seminole people. And it's our understanding that the theft of indigenous land, the genocide of indigenous peoples of these lands, along with the theft of African people and the massive enslavement of African people are 2 pillars of what built the US and the European system that continues to dominate the world. But as Chairman Omali Yeshitela has said, imperialism cannot survive a successful reparations struggle. And that's what brings us out here tonight. So, pardon me. I want to start by saluting our leadership and the Uhuru 3. So we want to begin by saluting Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the leader of the African People's Socialist Party, the leader of the African nation, who created and founded the Uhuru movement and whose decades of work to build a world free of colonialism has made reparations a household word today. Thank you, Chairman, for your relentless Uhuru. Thank you for your relentless leadership, your brilliant theory of African internationalism that doesn't just explain the world, but provides the tools for changing the world. And I also want to salute Deputy Chair Onazene Yeshitela, who is the second in command of the African People's Socialist Party, and whose work to build Black Star Industries and the Black Power Blueprint, building the economic anti-colonial institutions of the party, is shaking this colonial system to its core and exposing it for what it is. Because when this government is exposed as being an entity that brings nothing but death and destruction to African, indigenous, and colonized people, then people will want to join the growing movements, programs, and governments led by the colonized and oppressed, and colonialism will lose its power. And we say, yes, yes, this is what we want. We want to see the resistance and power in the hands of colonized people, of African people. And I also want to salute Chairwoman Penny Hess of the African People's Solidarity Committee, who first came to an organizing conference led by the chairman. I believe it was here in St. Petersburg that there was a conference that she came to 47 years ago. Chairwoman Penny was the first white person to internalize the understandings of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and to courageously build a white people's movement under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party for material and solidarity and reparations. And I want to say that Chairwoman Penny cannot be with us here in person tonight, but will be joining us virtually. So Uhuru and salute to Chairwoman Penny Hess. I also want to salute Jesse Nevel, chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, the first white person to run for mayor on a platform of reparations in the world. Yeah. And he did it here in St. Petersburg. Chair Jesse, whose brilliant leadership made this particular event possible in so many ways, and whose bravery in facing these attacks on the movement inspires more and more white people to join in unity with Black power and African liberation, and to organize to build a mass movement for reparations under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. Both Chairwoman Penny, who is not able to be with us in person, but will join us on Zoom as she's recovering from an illness, but Pardon me, I mangled that sentence. Chair Jesse, we're so glad to have you here in Aquaba Hall with us tonight. Uhuru, Chair Jesse. And we are also honored to have with us and speaking here tonight, the Director of Media and Communications for the African People's Socialist Party, the former St. Pete City Council candidate, whose slogan was "Make the South Side Black Again," one of the targets of the FBI raids of July 29, 2022, a so-called unindicted co-conspirator, and a truly inspirational and fearless leader, Director Akile Anayi. And I also want to salute and thank the Southern Regional Representative of the African People's Socialist Party, Konji Mwengu, and Chair of the Hands Off Uhuru Movement, Chair Mwezi Odom. Uhuru. So for those of you who do not yet know, Uhuru means freedom in Swahili, and it is the greeting that we use in the Uhuru movement to clearly put the freedom of African people on our minds, to have it on our minds 24 hours a day. So you can say it too. I want to hear you say it. Uhuru. 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 And so in the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, we understand that we have an opportunity. We can decide not to continue the legacy of the slave master for one more generation. The chairman once said that slavery is the legacy of white people and of Africans. White people inherited the social wealth of slavery, right? And Africans inherited the poverty of the enslaved. The revolutionary African working class is determined to change that legacy. So the question for white people is this: what will our legacy be? The answer can be unity through reparations, which is our slogan in the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, given to us by our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. All right, comrades. So at this point, I want to ask everyone to please silence your cell phones. And I did, we did leave at the front a program. Hopefully people got that. And there are restrooms over here. And I think that is all the housekeeping that I have. So I am remiss though, because there's someone here joining us tonight to make a solidarity statement who I have not thanked for being here. Wow. And that is Lauren Pinheiro, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Excellent. Lauren is a member of the students of Tampa Bay, Students for Democratic Society, and one of the Tampa Five. These are 5 activists on the campus of the University of South Florida, Tampa, who are facing 10 years in prison for protesting the anti-Black and anti-gay laws of Ron DeSantis. So we really appreciate you being here with us tonight, Lauren. And I'm gonna invite you up momentarily, but I believe the first thing that we're gonna do tonight is show you an important video so that everyone is really clear what happened in this building and in St. Louis, in 7 different homes and offices and properties of the Uhuru movement on July 29th, 2022. Should the podium be moved? I don't know. Yeah. Nope. Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
This is the FBI. You have a federal warrant for this address. Keep your hands up and follow orders. This is the FBI. We have a warrant for this.
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone.
This is the FBI. You have a federal warrant for this address. Keep your hands up and follow orders. This is the FBI. We have a warrant for...
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
You need a breach? What do you need?
They want.
I don't know.
I told them that money. Don't take it.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
So it never ceases to just sink in further what the US government did on July 29th. And it's still happening, but they're going to see that they made a serious mistake by attacking the African People's Socialist Party in this way. So I want to just add one more bit of housekeeping, that there is, please no recording unless you're someone that is a designated person taking pictures or video in here. Thank you so much. And I think that the next thing we're going to do is invite Lauren Pinheiro from the Tampa 5 to come up and deliver a solidarity statement.
Hi, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. My name is Lauren Pinheiro. I'm a member of the Tampa Bay chapter of Students for Democratic Society and also one of the Tampa 5. So we're a group of 5 activists made up of 3 students, 1 community member, and 1 campus worker who are facing felony charges up to 5 to 10 years in prison for protesting at the University of South Florida against Ron DeSantis' racist attacks on Black history, diversity programs, ethnic studies, and higher education. We were brutalized and arrested by campus police because we dared to stand up to Ron DeSantis' whitewashing of history and demand that USF increase Black enrollment on campus. The Uhuru 3 are being targeted for their opposition to the US's involvement in the war of Ukraine. As an anti-war organization that currently has members fighting against felony charges, SDS stands in solidarity with the Uhuru 3 and all protesters facing political repression. We stand against any attempts made by the US government to target activists in progressive movements in the country. In the past year, we have witnessed a large wave of political repression in the state of Florida, with pro-abortion activists and pro-Palestine protesters facing charges for standing up against DeSantis' right-wing agenda. We know that SDS did nothing wrong with protesting DeSantis and defending diversity in education earlier this year. We know that Uhuru did nothing wrong by showing international solidarity and holding a strong anti-war stance. And that despite DeSantis calling us terrorists, the people of Florida are doing nothing wrong and standing and supporting Palestinian liberation. DeSantis, you
Palestine! Palestine!
DeSantis, USF, the police, and the FBI are the ones who are truly in the wrong here for trying to suppress our movements. It has been made very clear that they will do whatever they can to push progressive voices down, even going so far as to try to put us in prison. They want to make an example out of us to stop us from organizing because they are afraid of the power that we hold. But we will not back down from this fight. We will continue to use our voices because we know that we did nothing wrong and that we are on the right side of history. With the strength of our movements behind us, I know that we will win in dropping the charges on the Tampa 5 and the Uhuru 3. SDS stands with the Uhuru 3 and demands the immediate dismissal of these charges, these bogus charges, and the end to the investigations, political harassment, and intimidation aimed at our movements. Hands off! Uhuru! Hands off!
Africa!
Hands off! Hands off! Thank you.
Let's have another round of applause for the powerful solidarity statement from Nevel. Thanks for starting us off on the right note, Lauren. That was fantastic. Really, what a desperate system to attack activists in this way. Just reckless desperation. So thank you so much for that solidarity statement. And we are going to move now to opening remarks from one of the Uhuru 3, the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. I want to welcome up Jesse Nevel.
Uhuru. Unity through.
Reparations.
Hands off.
Uhuru.
Hands off.
Africa.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Long live Palestine.
Long live Palestine.
Drop the charges now. Drop the charges
now.
Uhuru. All right. I want to give another round of applause to Comrade Lauren Yarra from the Tampa 5. Really appreciate that powerful statement. And I also want to give a round of applause for our amazing MC here, Comrade Jamie Simpson. Let's give it up for Jamie. And I want to begin by just welcoming everybody here tonight to the final stop on the 2023 Days of Reparations to African People tour, and deeply express my salute, my revolutionary salute, to have with us in the room our leadership, the leadership of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, the leadership of the African People's Solidarity Committee, which is the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Uhuru Chairman. I want to echo Comrade Jamie's salutes of Deputy Chair Onizane Yeshitela, who is not physically in this room, but whose incredible leadership and presence is felt in this institution, in this Aquaba Hall. Everywhere you look, you see Deputy Chair. Brilliant leader in the African Revolution that we in the Solidarity Movement have the honor to work under Deputy Chair's leadership. And I also want to recognize that we have the Director of Media and Communications, the Editor-in-Chief of the Burning Spear newspaper, and the world's first reparations candidate, Director Akile Anai, who is here with us as well. And I also want to echo Jamie's salute of Chairwoman Penny Hess, the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee. And we had just a few days ago a march for reparations. And we said that Chairwoman Penny has been on the long march for reparations to African people since the founding of the African People's Solidarity Committee in this city 47 years ago, and she is still here today. So Uhuru, salute to Chairwoman Penny Hess. And there are other people, I will use my whole presentation to give salutes because it's important. I want to salute and just welcome people who have been a part of this movement for a very long time that we're honored to have. Comrade Pop, who is here with us, Uhuru Pop. We have Comrade Lucky, who is here with us, Uhuru Lucky. We have Comrade Chimaranga, who is here with us, Uhuru. And I also want to acknowledge the station manager of Black Power 96, who is here, DJ Eddie, Uhuru to DJ Eddie. And finally, I also want to salute the comrades of the African People's Solidarity Committee and Uhuru Solidarity Movement here, all of you who worked to make this event happen. And I want to appreciate our endorsers. This event tonight, in addition to having the endorsement and presence of our comrade from Tampa Bay SDS, was also endorsed by the Florida Indigenous Alliance, the American Indian Movement, and a teacher here in Pinellas County named Grant Robinson, who has also come under attack for opposing what is happening in the so-called education system here. And I also want to appreciate representatives of the Freedom Road Socialist organization who are here with us today as well. Thank you for being here. So as Jamie mentioned, I am a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and I have the honor to be the chair of our mass organization, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. These are the organization of white people working under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party and Chairman Omali Yeshitela, with the assignment, the mandate to go back into our own white communities and win other white people like ourselves to stand in principled unity and solidarity with African people and with all colonized and oppressed peoples around the world. And I want to say that because, excuse me, everything that I am able to understand as a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee is 100% because I have had the honor and the opportunity to work under the leadership of the chairman and the party and internalize and study the theory of African internationalism, which enables us as white people, as the colonizer, to see the world through the eyes of the African working class, through the eyes of the oppressed, which is another way of saying to see the world as it truly is. So I just want to acknowledge that and say that this event tonight, it is fitting for the Days of Reparations to African People event to conclude the tour, to conclude in the city of St. Petersburg, Florida, considering the theme of this year's tour, No to FBI War on Black Liberation, and to have our final event in a building which just last year on July 29th was filled with SWAT military gear wearing FBI agents with assault rifles who broke down every single door in this building and looted this historic building of tons and tons of hard drives and archives and electronics and other kinds of things. But beyond just that, it is significant to be here in St. Petersburg 2 days after, as Jamie mentioned, the commemoration of the murder of Tyrone Lewis and the subsequent heroic African rebellions that shook this city and shook the whole country, and the resistance in the face of 300 St. Petersburg and county police who invaded this building and fought back and defeated them and pushed them back. So we salute the heroic resistance of African people here in the city of St. Petersburg. The Days of Reparations campaign is not new. It is something that the Solidarity Movement has been carrying out in one form or another under the leadership of the party since 1979, when the African People's Solidarity Committee held the first March Against Genocide in Oakland, California. Our goals with the campaign this year are very specific, and I want to tell you what they are. One, we want you to join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, to become a member of the Organization of White Solidarity with Black Power under the leadership of the African Revolution, and work with us to build the branch of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement here in the city of St. Petersburg. 2, we are going to talk about how you can actually make reparations a reality by funding and contributing towards the programs of Black Star Industries. And we'll be talking about that a lot later tonight. And finally, we want you to get on the bus and come to Washington, D.C. on November 4th to march in the reparations contingent at the Black People's March on the White House, the 15th annual Black People's March on the White House, led by the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations, which this year will take right to the doorstep of Joseph Biden's current living residence, the demand for the United States government to drop the charges against the Uhuru 3 and to drop the charges against the Tampa 5, who will be represented there, and to end all attacks on people who are standing up to this government and fighting against US government repression. So the Day of Reparations is a day in solidarity with the African Revolution. And therefore, it is a call to white people, colonizers, to unite with the struggle against colonialism. And therefore, the Day of Reparations as an anti-colonial day is a statement of profound, unconditional unity with the struggle of the Palestinian people who are courageously resisting and fighting to free themselves and their land from over 75 years of settler colonial occupation. The Day of Reparations is a call to white people, including white Jews, to recognize that Palestine is right here. Yeah. Palestine is South St. Petersburg, Florida. Yeah. Yeah. Palestine is every African, indigenous, and Mexican community in this country. The United States, the world's largest open-air prison, a prison of nations where African, indigenous, and oppressed peoples face the same horrific colonial brutality as the Palestinian people face under colonial occupation there. In a system built on the backs of the enslavement of African people and on the stolen land of the indigenous people against whom genocide was committed by us, by white people, by European settlers who continue to benefit and participate and be complicit with this social system today. And despite efforts by the opportunistic white left to separate the struggles of African and Palestinian people, Africans, as the chairman teaches us, African people and Palestinian people have always been united in struggling against colonialism. That is why the chairman specifically called for there to be red, black, and green flags and Palestinian flags flying at our days of reparations to African people. That it is one united struggle against colonialism, the total domination of a whole people by an oppressor nation for the benefit and profit of the oppressor nation, the colonizer, the settler that is enforced by state power. And as the chairman teaches us, colonialism is not a policy. It's not something Israel is doing right now, or that France is doing over here, or that the United States is doing in one territory or another. It's the mode of production. It's the mode of production responsible for all of the entire world economy. What we call capitalism rests upon the mode of production of colonialism. And the chairman has said, another way of saying it is that it's a mode of existence. Everything comes back to colonialism. Our mere existence as white people, our knowledge, our identity of ourselves, every goods and services, every ability to eat and have a home and have dreams and aspirations comes as a consequence of the colonial domination and theft of resources and pillaging and looting of African and colonized peoples around the world. This year's Day of Reparations campaign has a special urgency reflected in the theme, No to FBI War on Black Liberation. And as I mentioned, it has special significance today because of where we are, what has been known as the City of African Resistance, a battleground of FBI and police attacks on the Black liberation movement historically. We talked about Tyrone Lewis, October and November of 1996. And then for anyone who does not know the full details, I want to briefly talk about what happened last July and what has followed since then. So we saw that video. In that video, you could see some of the surveillance footage from this building What happened on July 29th of last year is that the United States government, through the FBI, along with the St. Petersburg Police Department and the St. Louis Police Department, carried out at 7 locations at the same time, at 6 a.m. here and at 5 a.m. in St. Louis, military-style coordinated raids, pre-dawn raids on 7 homes and offices. They raided this building with a veritable army of SWAT and FBI agents raided this building. They raided Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Onizane Yeshitela's home here in St. Petersburg, Florida, and in St. Louis, where they live today. They went to and lied to Director Akile and told her that somebody had broken into their car and that she should come outside. And the only part of that that was true is that somebody had broken into her car, and it was the FBI, and they handcuffed her and took her phone and computer and things like that. They came to the home of Penny Hess and Kitty Riley in South St. Louis. They came to the Uhuru Solidarity Center on 2654 Gravois in South St. Louis in the white community, a building owned by the African People's Socialist Party with a banner that says "Unity through Reparations," that is used to build and organize white people into the movement for reparations to African people. They came in with battering rams at all of these locations, battering rams, assault rifles, handcuffed people for hours, used drones, as the chairman said in the video, told the chairman and deputy chair to sit on the curb, which they refused to do, and continue to raid these properties for 6.5 hours. And shortly after that, this indictment comes out, indicting somebody in Russia for supposedly orchestrating a plot to undermine US democracy, and 4 people, including Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Chairwoman Penny Hess, myself, and Director Akile are characterized as unindicted co-conspirators. And the reason I'm spending so much time talking about this is because of the relevance and significance that this city and work done in this city has to this indictment. So 9 months after these raids happened, the US government issues an indictment of 3 of us, the chairman, Chairwoman Penny Hess, and myself, on 2 charges. 1 count of 18 US Code Section 371, which is conspiracy to commit an offense against or defraud the United States government. And that has a maximum prison sentence of 5 years. And 1 count of 18 US Code Section 951, which is operating as a foreign agent of a foreign government without registering with the Attorney General. And that has a maximum prison sentence of 10 years. So they are threatening Chairman Omali Yeshitela with 15 years in prison on these bogus and offensive charges that this incredible African revolutionary leader who has fought for Black freedom for more than 60 years of his life is actually, in their narrative, an agent in a Russian criminal conspiracy to take the St. Petersburg City Council race, the St. Petersburg mayor's race, and sow discord in the United States and undermine some alleged US democracy. In the indictment, here's some of the overt acts, which in a conspiracy indictment, overt acts are the things that you are supposed to have done in furtherance of the conspiracy. So the overt acts include holding a reparations tour. So congratulations, you are now all unindicted co-conspirators for attending this event tonight on our latest reparations tour. Something which the Uhuru movement has been doing since at least as early as 1983, holding reparations tours. They said that another overt act is that Director Akile ran for office, and I ran for office on a platform of reparations to African people, which thousands of people in this city supported, and other things similar to that, waging a petition campaign to charge the United States government with the crime of genocide against African people. They claimed that all of these things were actually being orchestrated by the Russian government, which is not only a lie, it is an insult to the agency that African people have. They have agency, they have self-determination. They know Chairman Omali Yeshitela is not a Russian agent. What they don't like is that he is an agent of Black power, that he is an agent of African liberation, an agent of his own people and the interests of humanity and not of the United States government. So we are clear that Chairman Omali Yeshitela is the primary target of this vicious attack, just as they attacked Marcus Garvey, just as they attacked Malcolm X, just as they attacked the Black Panther Party. They are attacking Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru movement because it represents the struggle of African people to be free from colonial domination. And we are also clear that Chairwoman Penny Hess and myself have been attacked because they do not want to see the chairman and the party's strategy of breaking the isolation the US government wants to impose on the Black liberation movement and extending the Black struggle behind enemy lines into the white population. They don't want to see you here. If you're a white person and you came here tonight to stand with the Uhuru movement, they attacked the Uhuru Solidarity Center. They indicted 2 leaders from the Uhuru Solidarity movement in order to scare and intimidate white people to say, no, that's not where you should go. And the woman who incited the lynching of Emmett Till, Carolyn Bryant, died earlier this year in her 90s, not in a prison cell, in her bed. Biden's Department of Justice closed the case on her and concluded that there was no basis to bring charges against her for inciting the brutal murder and torture of a teenager in 1955, of a young African person in 1955. And yet Penny Hess, the first white woman ever to heed the call of the African Revolution to fight for reparations to African people, gets indicted. So that's everything you need to know about where the US government wants you to go, what direction they want you to go. But the chairman has pointed out they made a mistake when they knocked down the door of the Uhuru Solidarity Center. They showed white people where to go. Come through that door. Come into the embrace of the African Revolution, which is our revolution, our leadership, and the leadership for all oppressed and colonized peoples on the planet Earth. So I want to close by saying that this day of reparations, as I mentioned, is a day of solidarity with the Palestinian people. We denounce the Israeli settler colonial domination of Palestine. We call on all white people, including Jews such as myself, to stand for Palestine, refuse to allow the US and Israel to use the suffering of European Jews at the hands of other Europeans, known as the Holocaust, as justification for yet another Holocaust against the Palestinian people, or to justify colonialism in general. And we call on white people to say more than just stop the war, but to say victory to the people of Palestine. The Palestinian people have a right to resist, and that the genuine stand for Palestine from white people in this country begins with the stand of solidarity with the African Revolution. We cannot walk over the bodies of African people, indigenous people, or past their righteous resistance movements to oppose what the same system, what the same colonial mode of production is doing to the Palestinian people in another country. The chairman said, make revolution where you are. That is our responsibility. And the revolution is not going to be led by white people, even if they hide behind a so-called multiracial working class. It's going to be led and is being led by the African workers, the true working class of the world, struggling inside the belly of the beast to overturn the colonial foundation upon which capitalism rests. So the attack on Chairman Omali Yeshitela is an attack on Palestine. And to unite and support and fight for the charges against Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru 3 to be dropped is a stand for the liberation of the Palestinian people. So I just want to close by thanking everybody for being here. I'm very excited that we have some amazing presentations coming up from Director Akile and from the chairman and from Chairwoman Penny. And I want to just, again, salute everybody who came out to this event tonight and say, hands off Uhuru. Hands off Africa. Unity through. Reparations. Drop the charges. Now. Drop the charges. Now. Uhuru. Uhuru.
All right, let's hear for Chair Jesse Nevel, that powerful presentation. Uhuru, Uhuru, thank you so much, Chair Jesse. Really, really unite with and appreciate your presentation. Thank you for being here. And I want to do something, a bit of housekeeping momentarily. First of all, I want to bring everyone's attention to Uhuru Pies, an institution of the African People's Education Defense Fund and Black Star Industries. We have Janice back there. These are delicious pies that fund the anti-colonial economy of the African working class. So don't forget to go and get yours. There's big ones, there's small ones, take your pick. And I want to also use this to suggest, okay, so I'm self-critical that we didn't clearly lay out the timekeeping for this event. And we want to be able to keep things on track so that we can get people out of here in a timely fashion. So this is what I'm going to do. Sarah is right here at the camera. So for the future speakers, I'm going to propose that Sarah will hold up this smaller Uhuru Pies flyer about ordering an Uhuru pie when you have 5 minutes left before it's time, and hold up this larger one when it is time. This is for ordering an Uhuru pie, and this is for volunteering for an Uhuru pie. That'll be the signal for time. So, and that's also my chance to plug Uhuru Pies right back there, both buying them and volunteering. So, and I think my program got taken away, but yes, we have next the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, Penny Hess. Uhuru, thank you for being here, Chairwoman Hess.
Uhuru, free, free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine.
Long live the African Revolution.
Long live
the African Revolution. Drop the charges on the Uhuru 3. Uhuru, I just want to say it's an honor to be here, and I also want to salute the memory of Tyron Lewis, who was one of the thousands of African young people who have been murdered by this colonial state police and army. And I just, really appreciate that the memory of Tyron Lewis is kept alive by the Uhuru movement. And I salute Jamie. So great to see you. Lauren from the Tampa 5, really powerful statement and stand that you are taking. Chair Jesse for incredible and powerful and mobilizing presentation, and all who are attending. And I salute the African People's Socialist Party, our leadership, Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela, who is so important in the front of the political economy, the liberated political economy of the African working class, as carried out by the African People's Socialist Party, Director Akile Anai, Director Chimurenga Selambao, Chair Mwezi Odom, President Matsumela, and so many other incredible leaders of the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement. I also want to salute Mr. Eddie and Lucky and Pop, who I saw when the camera scanned the audience. It was really powerful to see you. And I want to salute my leadership and the founder of the African People's Solidarity Committee and the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, the courageous, amazing, and brilliant and principled Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who has given us and the world really the language, the science, and the ability to see the world through the eyes of the colonized African working class and the oppressed of the earth, and who has given us the ability to see the world as it is and how it got that way, and to be able to do something about it, to be part of the future under the leadership of the African Revolution. And as has been said, Chairman Omali Yeshitela faces 15 years in prison for fighting for African people. And Jesse and I are facing 15 years in prison for fighting for reparations to African people. And I want to say, absolutely, we will not let the state lift a finger against Chairman Omali Yeshitela or the African Revolution, that we will fight on our front to defend the right for the anti-colonial free speech for African people to fight for their liberation. And I fight for my right and Comrade Jesse's right to organize for reparations to African people. They are not going to silence us. So I want to start by saying, as has been said, but I always have to reiterate, the African People's Solidarity Committee is the organization of white people under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. The party is fighting for the liberation of Africa and African people around the world because African people were kidnapped from Africa for hundreds of years, forcibly removed to places throughout this hemisphere and around the world where they were forced to produce and reproduce life for white people. The party aims to unite all African people because everywhere there are African people, they are oppressed and deeply impoverished and subjected to violence and injustice. And like the people of Palestine, African people just want to be free, as the chairman said. They want power over their lives to chart their own course, and they want the return of their stolen resources. And when I first heard the African People's Socialist Party and Chairman Omali Yeshitela in 1976, when I did come to St. Petersburg for the founding conference of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and the chairman just put out what African people are fighting for, what the African People's Socialist Party means, and its relationship of total unity and one with all oppressed and colonized peoples around the world. I knew that I wanted to be on this side of history, and that I totally unite with the fact that African people have the right to be free and self-governing. The existence of APSC was founded with a mandate by the African Revolution to go back into the white community, something that a lot of white people didn't want to do, to organize other white people to stand on the forward side of history, because African people are not going back, and because we live on the stolen wealth of African people and we owe reparations. This is an incredible time in history, as the chairman has said, because African, Palestinian, and oppressed peoples are rising up, and the social system that we live in, which was born on and rests on enslavement, plunder, genocide, and theft, which is maintained every day by war and greed and human suffering and violence and waste, that this system is weak. This system is weak, and it is being brought down by the struggles and forward motion of oppressed peoples all around the world who are exposing this vicious system as nothing but an empty shell of repression, violence, and destruction. For white people, the existence of the African People's Solidarity Committee means that we can now escape this system that counts on our loyalty and our relationship to it, sitting on the pedestal of everybody else on the planet, that gives us our livelihood and lets us live on this pedestal of the oppression of the rest of the world. And I think that a lot of people in the white community and probably people who are here tonight hate this system, that we recognize that this is the dog-eat-dog system. This is the rat race, the culture of violence, the might makes right system, the self-promoting, narcissistic, materialistic, self-indulgent system that makes you crazy and depressed and alienated and lonely, because to be successful, we have to be part of enslaving the world. We have to carry out the expectations that this system expects of us, and that we have to be part of carrying out the violence and accepting and uniting with the violence against the rest of the world and standing on the backs of others. But as the chairman said, this system is weak. It's threatened by the fierce resistance of the oppressed and colonized peoples of the planet. If you are here tonight, it is because African people are fighting to be free and self-governed. And I assume that you hate this parasitic system, the system that Chairman Omali Yeshitela calls the colonial mode of production, meaning that colonialism is the DNA of the system, the way everything is produced and created. There's no innocent way. There's no way that things are manufactured and created, and the superstructure of the society, the ideas that we think, are not soaked in the blood of African, indigenous, and colonized peoples around the world. There is no other way. There is one system. The chairman has showed us this. He has shown this science, that it is built on violence. And that is why, as of, I believe, yesterday, there have been 36 mass killings in this country so far this year. Why would that be? Because this is what the US was built on: mass murder, slaughter, genocide, and the enslavement of an entire people. And that the system is under threat by the rising consciousness led by a party of the African working class that has defined the questions of colonialism, of the question of reparations as a revolutionary demand, and given the narrative of the resistance, of the oppressed, a voice that is rising to the rooftops and fighting for liberation. And that we know that as white people, we sit on this pedestal, that we have options, that we don't have to see the world. We have options. We don't have to see anything beyond the reality in which we live if we want and we try. But sometimes the violence of the system towards others is so great, and the resistance of the oppressed is so forceful that we have to see it. 3 years ago, the police murdered George Floyd in Minneapolis, and it was caught on camera, and African people rose up in a fierce resistance, prompting an estimated 26 million people in the United States to come out and demonstrate against what this government does to African people. And even though such murders are common, about 3,000, mostly African and colonized people, have been murdered by the police since George Floyd was murdered. 3,000. Millions of people, millions of white people came out due to the leadership of the powerful resistance of African people that we saw. And that for a minute there, we saw this mass movement, and we felt that even as white people, we can be part of changing the world. We can be part of creating a positive future in which all people can live, no one at the expense of anybody else. And about 3 weeks ago, the oppressed and brutalized Palestinian people, colonized inside of the settler colonial state of Israel, rose up and fought back in a brilliant resistance. And that this exposed the violence of the system faced by the Palestinian people every day for the past 75 years under colonial occupation in an outpost of the US in the Middle East, built on the model of the US against the indigenous and African people right here. And that slavery and genocide is the DNA of the United States and of this system that we live in. And it is this horrible thing, as has been said, called the colonial mode of production. This is the understanding the chairman has given us, that white people came out of Europe poor and oppressed and set out to conquer, to assault Africa, to kidnap African people by the millions, to cage them up, to rape them, to pack them in the holds of ships, to murder them at will and keep them alive in unbearable existences as work machines for us, as commodities, enslaved as, quote, chattel, which means movable property owned by white people, that African people were the most lucrative, most valuable, movable property in the United States, worth more than the silver and gold mines, more than the railroads, more than the real estate the actual land of the US, which is also stolen and dripping in the blood of the indigenous people. And that this is what transformed, as the chairman has shown us, Europe from total poverty, white people from poverty into wealth, as wealth poured into Europe, and white people lusted after gold like hungry swine, as the indigenous people said, that it took slaughter unprecedented in the history of the world, suffering unprecedented for this to come about, for white people to become the colonizers, the wealthy, the most prosperous sector of the human population. And never before in history has a small percentage of the world's population violently dominated the vast majority, but it was the barrel of the gun. It was violence, it was bombs, it was hanging people, it was knifing people, it was murder and slaughter that enabled white people to do that. And white people were complicit, got packed with the devil. We hanged people for fun and danced and partied and took pictures with our little children posed in front of the lifeless bodies of African people. We made postcards out of that. We had voluntary cavalries to slaughter the indigenous people, to steal their land, and that we stole children and forced them into concentration camps of indigenous people and African people. And one white child had the power of life and death over an African person. A white woman had the total power of life and death over an African man way before white women had the vote or any other rights in the society. And the US government could not have done this without us. There wouldn't be manifest destiny. There wouldn't be an arch here in St. Louis that means the gateway to the West, of basically the slaughter that it took to kill and commit genocide fully against the indigenous people here on their own land. And when the entire world lived under the violence of colonial domination, and we became the most prosperous people on the planet Earth in this way. So we see India, the Middle East, South Africa, Vietnam, China, the entire continent of Africa, Hawaii, Alaska, all the Americas, the entire of South Asia, every corner of the planet carved up, looted, and colonized. Right now, I'm reading a book called Nutmeg's Curse, about a tiny island in the Indian Ocean, where the only place, one of the few places in the world where nutmeg grows. And the Dutch came in the 1600s and just slaughtered and wiped out the entire people who had lived there for tens of thousands of years. And this was the story worldwide. Suddenly, for white people, the streets of gold were paved in gold. The streets of the US were paved in gold, or so it was said. And this is how we gained our democracy, our so-called inalienable rights, which means that they could not be bought and sold or taken away, that we had the freedom of speech, we had the Constitution. We were the real people. As the chairman said, we were the subjects of history. And African and indigenous people were alienable, meaning they could be sold, they could be forcibly moved, they could be traded. They were, as the chairman said, the objects of history, those without a voice, without a name or a past. They were a commodity. And therefore, it is so clear that everything that we have as white people is stolen. The land, the $68 trillion that is right now sitting in the wills of white people ready to pass down from the baby boomers to the next generation. And they talk about the black-white wealth gap. White people own, in the US today, 85.5% of all the wealth in the US, with African people owning only 4.2% and Mexican people owning only 3%, according to Federal Reserve data. African people overall do not have generational wealth. This is colonialism, the colonizers and the colonized. And the Rand Corporation a couple of years ago did a study led actually by African people that the wealth gap between white people and African people in the US is so great that, and it's getting greater all the time, that it would take 200 years to catch up because the labor of African people has been stolen for hundreds of years. And the Rand Corporation determined that to financially close that gap would take reparations, and they did use the term reparations, of $3 trillion that would have to be paid to African people in the US that would close the gap, giving every African household $168,000 to eliminate the wealth gap, the enormous wealth gap. But the study said, but even eliminating the wealth gap might only be a temporary victory because the same conditions that fed its growth in recent decades, credit, housing, and employment discrimination, steep disparities in incarceration rates still exist without addressing these deeper drivers of inequity. The Rand Corporation said future generations could eventually find themselves right back where we are now. And we know that is what colonialism is. It affects and limits every single aspect of the lives of African people. And what we're saying is this is colonialism. Colonialism affects all aspects of life. Look up the Black-white, African-white discrepancies on infant mortality or police violence or healthcare or educational discrepancies. Everything, every aspect of life is pure hell for the colonized African working class. And the white left is part of the system and part of the state that oppresses African people. White socialism has been about to allow or enable white working people to share a greater part of the stolen loot, to democratize the pedestal, so to speak. And the way forward is under the leadership of the African Revolution, the party of the African working class, the vanguard, the African People's Socialist Party that takes the responsibility to lead, to solve the problems of the revolution, and is highly disciplined to fight and to win and exercise Black political and economic power in their own hands. This is the day of reparations to African people. Reparations is not a payout. It's not a payment. It's what is owed. Reparations is the true redistribution of the wealth of the world into the hands of the true working class of the world, the African working class. So let's get organized. Let's stand up as white people, make our self-criticism, and join the struggle in a principled way. Let's get on the side, the winning side, because African people are winning. Oppressed and colonized peoples are winning. This is a powerful period that we're in, comrades. Let's refuse to allow them to even lift a finger against Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru 3. Join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, raise reparations for the African Revolution, be part of the future, join in solidarity with the anti-colonial free speech movement, hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, victory to the Palestinian and African people, unity through reparations. Uhuru! Uhuru.
All right, let's have another round of applause for Chairwoman Penny Hess. Ooh. Thank you for that powerful presentation, Chairwoman Penny. And thank you for being the first white person to take this stand of solidarity with the African Revolution and with reparations as our only way forward as white people. And our next speaker, I'm very honored to bring up, is the person who made that a possibility for us in the white community, the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Uhuru, and welcome.
Uhuru. First of all, I just want to express my appreciation, first of all, to the organizers of this incredible event that we're having today. I know it's part of our tradition. Generally speaking, the days of reparation to African people. And it's a critical time, as has been said over and over again. And I'm going to begin with the self-criticism because there's so many people who played such brilliant and incredibly significant roles in making this happen. And I shan't attempt, as Comrade Jesse and Comrade Penny so cavalierly did and named everybody, et cetera, et cetera. I'm afraid that my memory will not permit that. But I am thankful. I do, however, have to acknowledge the significance and role of Comrade Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela. And one of the reasons I have to do that is because the assault that's being made on us now is a part of reflection of a response by the government to the work that she's done in terms of the economic development for African people, the genuine economic anti-colonial economy that we are involved in creating now. So I wanted to just acknowledge that. Also, I think it's extremely important for us to address this issue of Palestine. People come at this question from different directions. And some people are really sympathetic with the Palestinians, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that thousands, millions of people rose up when George Floyd was murdered, et cetera. And there was like a temporary explosion of just opposition to murder and brutality. And a lot of times people didn't necessarily mind this kind of murder and brutality happen. They just didn't want to see it. And so, you know, there was a time when people had to see what was happening in Vietnam because there were reports and you saw the murder, you saw the brutality. People couldn't pretend that it wasn't happening, and people couldn't pretend that they didn't have a relationship to it. The taxes and other stuff that they were, the people who they elected was carrying out the murder. So the US government learned from that. And having learned from that, they began this process of embedding reporters that would travel with the troops, et cetera. So there were no free reporters out there. You got a narrative that was created by the government on the battlefield, et cetera. We're seeing that right now in the murder of Palestinians. And so this question, I wanted to say briefly, being conscious of the time, that the African revolution has always been united with the question of Palestine. It's not even a new thing. That Malcolm X was in Gaza in 1964, and they killed him a few months after. I'm convinced, and most people in our movement are convinced, that was one of the reasons Malcolm died. We used to talk about it all the time, how Malcolm, the role he played in internationalizing the African revolution in this country. So Malcolm was there. SNCC in 1967, I was a member of SNCC in 1967 when SNCC came out. After the so-called, what was it called, 3-day war, some 6-day war, SNCC came out united with Palestine. What the hell do you mean, uniting with Palestine? And that meant that all of the white liberals and most of the white left, et cetera, took back all the resources they were given to SNCC. SNCC had organizers in Mississippi where we were being butchered, murdered, just like Palestinians were being murdered in occupied Palestine, et cetera. And SNCC took that stance. The Rap Brown spoke in something like 1967 before more than 3,000 white leftists, anti-war people, and criticized them severely because of their ability to call for stopping the bombing in Vietnam, but they couldn't do it around Palestine. And of course, the reason they wanted to stop the bombing in Vietnam, stop the war in Vietnam, because the white children were being sent to Vietnam and the Vietnamese were sending them back in a different condition from that which they went into. And so that caused a certain kind of crisis, an anti-war movement, no war, et cetera. But then look at what they were doing in Palestine. Nothing. Our movement has consistently united with the struggle of Palestinian people. But we also united with the struggle of the people of Iraq, the struggle of the people in Venezuela, Nicaragua, the struggle of all colonized and oppressed peoples around the world, because when we became conscious of what the hell was going on, we understood it was our struggle too. And it was a part of a breakout of consciousness of African people who had been pulverized for such a long period of time, murdered, brutalized, churches bombed, leaders killed on a regular basis, if not with the participation of ordinary white people, certainly no meaningful opposition. That was the thing that we've had to live with, a permanent state of fear, a permanent state of terror African people face right now, even as we have this discussion, who won't come to a meeting because they know the police bombed that place the last time they had an event there. Or because if my boss knows that I would let them want to lose my job. Can't even wear your hair a certain way. African, it reflects a militancy or something that you're not supposed to be. You break out of the definition that they have created for who we are supposed to be. When I was a young person, I remember feeling that older African men had some kind of physical affliction because we had learned how to walk and move in a certain way that physically we demonstrated with every action or lack of that we were not a threat to white people. So you walk, your head, your body stooped, your head down, and that's a permanent state of fear that we live with. And but things changed. And I want to say that this question is really important. I'm here now, and with this discussion with you right now. You've heard all of the stuff about the law. We haven't broken any law. First of all, we didn't break any law. But that's today we didn't break a law because they'll change it tomorrow and make it an illegal thing. That's what it means to have power as the colonizer. What was legal yesterday is no longer legal today if it's inconvenient for the maintenance of system, because law is only the opinion of the ruling class. Right. And at any given time, that opinion changes depending upon what the conditions are in the world. I grew up in this whole thing that they used to talk about. You can't stop somebody, arrest somebody, or question, without some kind of, they call it probable cause now. But that's a movement of a definition that you can't just stop and arrest somebody just because you feel like doing it. And so they came up with this concept of probable cause. And what was reasonable cause or something like that? I think they characterize it now. And reasonable cause is anything that the cop thought. Reason the cop thought they should stop you. So law is flexible. It's in the possession of the ruling class. Right. Law, assumptions of law that tells you something about the nature of this social system is this presumption that, as they say, that possession is 90% of ownership. Doesn't matter how the hell you got it, if you got it. And I'm reminded of this rather famous quote from Theodore Roosevelt, who talked about Panama and says ours because we stole it fair and square, right? So we have gone through a period that's very difficult for white people to understand. And it's extremely difficult for many African people to understand, partially because we've lived under this system for such a long period of time. When we first started doing reparations work in the mid-70s, we were called a part of a lunatic fringe. To even talk about reparations, you had to be crazy. So we are part of a lunatic fringe. And what has happened is that the struggles of African people, anytime that struggle has made itself manifest in a way that says, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want, you murdered my people, I'm here, I didn't volunteer. Black people and indigenous people are the only people on this land right now who did not come here looking for a better way of life. We lost a better way of life as a consequence of coming here. We came here at gunpoint. And this whole notion about everybody who wants to get here, we came here at gunpoint. And there are millions of us. I mean, some people have estimated at least 100 million Black people who died in the process of capturing and bringing Africans to this territory that they now call America. So here's the contradiction that we have. Because the oppression of African people that we are experiencing today, the world economy as it looks today, has its origin in action that was taken 600 years ago in 1415, when Portugal, this tiny, non-essential it's like an appendix, nobody knows exactly what it's for, it's just hanging on. Well, that's sort of like Portugal, it was. And then Portugal set out and initiated this process in Africa. It went into Africa. It started capturing Black people. It took this land, this island, the Madeiras, and began plantations with sugar. This is what introduced sugar to the economy and the tables of most Europeans. In fact, sugar was a really luxurious kind of thing. And sugar coming, it was not just because it's sweet and tastes good, but it brought energy. I mean, now people could work harder and longer and things like that. The whole world is changing as a consequence of sugar. And then you see this same Portugal begins the process of Columbus gets involved in this of going onto the continent of Africa. We've been told the nonsense that somehow you had these wonderful explorers who had this incredible intellectual itch that drove them to all these places around the world. This is how they came to this land right now. If it's not that, we've been told fantasies that created by the colonizers themselves, that it wasn't something that they wanted to do, that is to say, take the land and properties and the people from various places, but it was their responsibility. It was the white man's burden to bring civilization and Christianity to the rest of us. And so this became a part of the political line. This became a part of the narrative. This became a part of the ideological foundation of a social system that we're living with now. They had to do it to bring civilization to the rest of us. And they didn't want to do it. It's the white man's burden. Rudyard Kipling, one of the wonderful British poets and what have you, wrote this poem about the white man's burden. And so this became like the political line that was developed in Europe. The fact of the matter is the consciousness of white people, self-perception, it has its origin in the existence, the creation, the existence of a social system. The first world economy in the world, the first world economy in the world in history occurred when Portugal made that attack and then began this process of dispersing African people all around the world. That's how people got to, many white people, and how I got to the Americas. That's how Africans got to Haiti. That's how Africans got, that's how there is a Jamaica, a Guyana, and the rest of that. This is the whole process of world economy. For the first time, there was no world economy. People traded with each other. People have found evidence of hundreds of years ago of Africans being in China and other places, maybe 1,000 years ago. But there was no world economy until now. The whole world now hooked up into a single economy. It's upon this foundation. This is what inspired Karl Marx, though he didn't say it this way, exactly what I'm talking about. He said that this oppression that the workers, people like to talk about the exploitation of the workers catch hell, don't they? Workers catch hell. But Karl Marx said, we have to figure out how this whole thing began. He said that if we really want to understand capitalist exploitation, capitalist production, then we have to look at how the hell there is an accumulation of capital that's necessary for capitalist production. He said that. I didn't say that. And then he said, in order for there to be capitalist accumulation, there must first be a capitalist production. Therefore, it looks like we're trapped in this vicious circle unless we presuppose there was an accumulation of capital that was not a consequence of production, but it's the starting point. He said that starting point was turning Africa into a commercial hunting for commercial, what does it say? A warren for the commercial hunting of black skins. He talked about the war that was being made on the East India, the people who are now in India, where at least 50 million people were murdered as a part of the process. But this is tea-sipping English who were responsible. This is the beginning of the creation of a whole world economy that almost decimated the indigenous population here. You don't even find indigenous people walking down the streets here. What the hell, what happened to them? And nobody even talks about them unless they're in the room. And the fact of the matter is you can't see them because those who survived are in concentration camps that they call Indian reservations. I'm just mentioning this in terms of we have to look at the foundation of this social system if we want to understand what it's about and how to deal with it. because the workers can get involved and have been involved and do get involved and struggle for the rights of the workers to overthrow the bourgeoisie that's sitting on this pedestal of oppression of slavery, pure and simple. So you have a workers' revolution. And I've read about things that were characterized in that fashion, happening in places like what they call South America now, Latin America now, as they call it. They ain't Latin now. And yet the people, the indigenous people are still catching hell. The African people are still catching hell because colonialism continues to exist, because that was the mode of production. You've misidentified what the fundamental contradiction was in what you're fighting for is white rights.
Yes.
White rights, whether you call it workers, whether you call it women, whether you call it homosexuals, white rights.
Yes.
Unless you can recognize that the particular contradiction that you're looking at as it relates to women, workers, homosexuals, etc., and within that there's a universal contradiction. That universal contradiction is a colonial mode of production.
Yes.
That's really important for us to understand. That's the struggle. And then you've got a population, for example, to get an American to struggle against America is to struggle against identity. There was no such thing as an American before slavery, before the theft of this land. The beginning of history for that European is with slavery and the theft of the land of the indigenous people. That's the beginning of history. The beginning of history of Europe is the enslavement of the rest of the world, etc. So to fight against it, that's why empires held in such high esteem. The British Empire, the Roman Empire, the highest expression of European civilization. Because it's so central to the identity of what we now call white people, which is an extraordinary invention. Extraordinary invention, but it's something, we're looking at something that gives people a real problem, trying to get to this. I'm involved in the struggle. I am not trying to integrate into America. I am not trying to integrate into America. And the fact is that there are Black people and oppressed people around the world who wish America, as is now constructed, would disappear off the damn planet. Not trying to integrate in. I can see the Palestinians. Wow, I'll be glad when I can integrate with these murderers, etc. Why you require that of me? You didn't require the Vietnamese to say, let's integrate with the people who are napalming us and bombing us. Why do you require that of me? You understand? And it's required of me because the whole system, we recognize the centrality of the question of the oppression and exploitation of Black people to the whole social system itself. I want to just be quick because I know that I was supposed to be much briefer. So I just want to say that I was born in this city, and I'm accused of being a Russian agent. But ever since I came to consciousness, I've been fighting against the condition of Black people in this city. And that's what I've done. I was lucky because I was born in a real critical time in history. I was born in the 1940s, the opening up of the 1940s. There's a time, 1947, as you know, India became independent. 1949, China became independent. And Black people were living under the most grotesque circumstances here and other places around the world. But this thing happening out there was evidence that Black people and other people could have power. We didn't have to just accept this relationship with white people. People could struggle and take back their power. The fact is that the whole colonial construct was one that had what the people who define themselves as white has imposed on everybody else. So now we see people who are fighting the white man and winning. People becoming free and independent. And I'm sure that had a lot to do with impacting my own consciousness and the consciousness of my generation. To see this was evidence. And then, of course, we saw moving forward, the situation where in the Afro-Asian conference that happened with newly independent countries in April of what was that, 1955, I think it was, in Bandung, Indonesia, where colonized people from Europe, from Africa and Asia came together to talk about how we're going to get our freedom. This was a remarkable thing that had begun 1966. The Tricontinental Conference happened in Cuba, Havana, Cuba. Well, Africa, Asia, people from Africa, Asia, and what they call Latin America, came together to talk about how we're going to win our freedom, etc. It's a bold moment in history, a whole turning point where the colonized people are uniting and struggling against this existing social system. And then, of course, we've seen the mayhem that's come as a consequence. And I should mention to you, Cho and Ma, who from China was in Bandung and played a big role in how that Bandung conference would look. And Amir Cabral, another revolutionary force, is there in the Tricontinental Conference that happened in Havana, Cuba. Che Guevara couldn't be there because he was at the time in Bolivia, but he sent a message from Bolivia. That's before they killed him, etc. My point is that peoples everywhere were fighting to overturn this social system, and this was the gravest threat that the system had had at least since the Haitian Revolution, that challenged the entire capitalist social system, because the whole world economy revolved at the time around slavery, and Haiti kicked the ass of France, United States, France, England, Spain, etc., and they won their freedom. And then not only did they win their freedom, they said that any enslaved person on the planet, if you get to Haiti, you're free, you can be free. This challenged the whole system. The capitalist system was challenged most seriously there in Haiti during this point. And so the Tricontinental Conference happened in Cuba. There was something like 500 delegates from 85 countries that showed up, 82 countries that showed up in Havana. And so with this happening, then the struggle everywhere moved from this whole thing of what you're fighting to do is become one with the system. This contributed to it. Black people are supposed to fight to be Americans. And Black people are supposed to integrate with white folk. And of course, the oppressed don't have the power to integrate. And they tell you, what you do is fight integration. How the hell am I going to integrate? You got all the money, you got all the power, you got everything. How can the oppressed integrate with anybody, even if that were something that one wants to do? And that's an insult anyway. Why do I have to integrate in order to be free, to be a human being, et cetera? So here you have this whole movement of consciousness, and it happened inside this country. 1966, you saw this Black Power movement explode. First expression in this country, but it was something that spread to Black populations throughout the world. And this was something that was absolutely unacceptable. And this was the thing that turned the corner, when now Black people are not validating the system by saying, please, can I come in? Please, let me be with you. Please, can I live next door to our neighborhood lyncher? Now, African people were not validating the system by saying, I want to join it. So how could you want to join it if it's so bad? Why the hell would you be wanting to join it? The fact that you're having demonstrations to join with the system is validation of the system that you're complaining about. But that's changed now. Black power. Yes. Black power. This was something that startled the consciousness, shook up everybody. I was there. You understand? And this is the thing. I was with SNCC. I tried to join the NAACP youth group when I was here in the city, young person. Couldn't work for me. These bold young Africans who went into places that Dr. Martin Luther King and the NAACP and others were terrified. They wouldn't go in there. They didn't just go in. If King went in, they'd have a demonstration, raise money, and got the hell out of town. And that left the masses of people to catch the hell that was left there for them. But SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, went in, lived with the people, organized with the people, took the same chances with the people, and that's what helped to inform their consciousness about violence and nonviolence, etc. They said, we aren't playing this stuff about philosophical nonviolence. From now on, in order to get something, you're gonna have to bring something. Yeah. And that became a political stance that came from these bold young people. And that was extremely important. So Black power, when people said, we're fighting for power, that put the African revolution in this country on the same trajectory of anti-colonial struggle that everybody else was engaged in. Because when you're talking about power, you're talking about struggling against colonialism. Because what is colonialism except foreign alien domination that you imposed on the people? Now you're not talking about trying to join with the oppressor, power. The question of colonialism became a dominating question throughout this whole period. And this is when you see rebellions happening throughout this country. 1965, and Watts in Los Angeles, California, people engaged in a magnificent rebellion there. Africans did. But the slogan at the time was burn, baby, burn, right? Burn, baby, burn. But 1966, what people were saying with the rebellions was black power, black power. They had broken free. That was happening in 1965. I was in Watts when it happened. I was in Watts when Dick Gregory came out, was sent out to try to calm the people down, tell them to go home, take your women and children, go home, and people shot him. They brought Martin Luther King, Will Rogers Park, to speak to black people to try to calm it down, take a nonviolent position. And people booed King off the stage. Something was changing in this country in terms of, it was akin to what was changing with colonized people all around the world. It wasn't just happening here, it was everywhere. The Black Revolution was something that swept the globe. And this is the thing that was changing, that challenged the entire social system. And so, you know, I had people who were telling me that they want to give me scholarships and just go to school and get this and that. This was offers that was made to me. And, but the fact is that the people have to be free. And they have to be free from calling. I'm insulted, offended by this whole notion of the superiority of white people. You know, and I don't care how that is characterized. Right. The chosen people, right. The master race, yeah. You know, et cetera. None of that stuff flies with me. Yeah. You know, and even what they try to do with this question of murdering Palestinians because of the poor Jews. Jews just like every goddamn body else. Right. Take your chances with the rest of us. I mean, and Jews were killed, but the Palestinians didn't kill them. They were killed by the same damn social system that the Zionists took the Jews into uniting with to take the land of the Palestinian people. And now they act just like, because they're part of that system, they act just like the Nazis act against the Jews. Right. And this chosen people thing is part of the process of isolating Jews from the rest of humanity. That ain't something that's going to help Jews to say you're the chosen people. That's going to isolate you from everybody else. You're going to tell you this land that we are stealing now, that we are using F-16s, et cetera, to bomb the murder Palestinians is ours because God gave it to us 40,000 years ago. What kind of real estate agent is that? I wouldn't hang out with a God that did some stuff like that. God gave them to him 4,000 years ago. That's, you know, and then people push forward policy based on that kind of nonsense, but it sure tugs at the heart. It makes you feel warm and very important. Same thing happened with the whole whiteness thing, you know. And then people are offended when we say we want our own government. We are fighting for self-determination, like every other dignified human people on the planet Earth. We demand to be free and in control of our own affairs. And then people are offended by that. We used to say that, black power. And then some white person come and say, well, what about the white people? What do you mean, what about the white people? First of all, you're no longer the subject. And secondly, white people are just like everybody else. You pee in the bottle, and then you go try to get a job. You understand? You learn to play your own basketball, right? You learn to sing your own songs, have your own babies, and do all this other stuff just like everybody else. You know, there is no special place in the universe like that. We don't play that. Nobody does that. And growing numbers of people who they identified as white are offended by that. Why would somebody want to be separated from the rest of the people on the planet Earth? Why in the hell would you want to be alone? Right? So anyway, so we've been told that our struggle has to be against racism. We have to make white people like us. And you can't fight against colonialism. And what has occurred, of course, is that assassinations, Malcolm assassinated, Lumumba, Nkrumah assassinated, Garvey movement it even more than 100 years ago destroyed because we say we're going to be a self-governing people. I see you, Sarah. So these forces get quieted, wiped out. And there's a temporary kind of pause in the resistance against colonialism, and there's resistance that looks like self-determination. And then you got the African People's Socialist Party been working for 50 years to put this movement back on track. For 50 years, after the assassination of Malcolm, after the murder of Panthers all around this country, after the overthrow of Lumumba, after the wounding and capture and murder of Che Guevara, 50 years, the African People's Socialist Party has been here fighting for total liberation. This ain't no attack on me. They don't want to I'm 82 years old. They intend to give me a death sentence, but the attack is on Black people, the Black revolution, and the growing solidarity of the colonized peoples of the world that the African People's Socialist Party sparked, consciously working to pull all of that together. The fact is that there's one struggle against colonialism operating on so many different fronts. That's why I'm attacked. That's why I'm attacked. And so the US still has to be defined, do self-definition. It talks about how the world is now one with contests happening between democracies and autocracies. And the US is a democracy. And everybody who disagrees with the US is part of autocracy. And the reason they've been able to get away with that to some extent is because they succeeded in enough assassinations and murders of African leaders and destruction of our organizations and what have you, that nobody has raised the question, but the party has. And we've been doing it. We've built organizations all over Africa. We've built organizations in the Caribbean. We've built African organizations in Europe. When we talk about November 4th, the mobilization that we're having, the march, Black People's March in the White House, we're doing that in Washington, D.C. But we're also doing it in LA, California, where people from the West Coast will be coming. We're also doing it in South Africa at the U.S. Embassy in Pretoria. We're doing it in England at the U.S. Embassy in London. We're building a whole movement and we're uniting and winning unity with all colonized peoples around the world. Magnificent. This thing in the West Coast is going to be extraordinary in part because of all Mexicans, Filipinos, everybody involved in this process working against colonialism. That's what we're involved in now too. So some people have challenged this and suggest that somehow the struggle that we're waging now is challenging the significance of the struggle that the Palestinians are involved in. And I say that's not true. That's a false issue. It's a splitting issue. We've always been with the Palestinians, even when white people wouldn't touch Palestine. Africans did. The Palestinians always knew where to come because they were safe in the African community. Even people who call themselves communists, white people, you didn't find them working and messing with them. White people were trying to take their communist ideas. They came to the Black community. They came to Mexico. They came to these places where the colonized live, precisely because the contradictions of class are concentrated in the colonial question. The colonial question, and that's where it's concentrated. And so we've always stood with Palestine, and in everything that we do, we've done that. We're struggling against colonialism because it's just Palestine right now. But Nigeria, Mali, Venezuela, Black community here, where's the next horrible offense going to be? Where's the next horrible thing that imperialism is going to do, colonialism is going to do, that roars the consciousness of the world? Do we have to start over every time? Do we have to start over every time? Can't we develop an anti-colonial strategy? Can't we say that an attack on Palestine is an attack on Africa, an attack on Africans, an attack on Palestine, all the colonized people of the world unite to destroy colonial oppression, destroy the colonial mode of protection? Can't we do that? I think it can be done. That's what we've been working on. That's what the stuff that we're doing. And I'm really happy that you are here to participate in this too. We want to organize. And there's some of you who ought to be in our organizations. You ought to be, because it has been said before, the thing is not as philosophers have only interpreted the world in certain ways, but the point is to change it. And everybody, my daughter is one of my daughters in this audience who, when she was a child, I was in and out of jail so much, not because of Russians, because of America, and because of fighting for Black people. I was in, and America can't say, with being this great democracy, that we still bombing Black people at 5 o'clock in the morning because they want to vote a certain way or participate in the electoral process. They can't say that we are attacking the right of Black people to have free speech. So they have to say, we know that you have a right to say free speech, generally speaking, and we know that generally speaking, you have a right to support ideologically or politically the struggles of other peoples around the world, but you don't have a right to do it because it's the Russians who told you to do it. We know you've done this 50 years. You've been more than 50 years the question of reparations now, but we know that. But in 2017 and 2019, you were paid to do it by the Russians. We know that you opposed America's war on the people of Vietnam. We know that you went to Ireland and Northern Ireland and Belfast at the time when the Irish people were fighting against British colonialism and Belfast was locked down. The first time I ever saw white people living in circumstances like Black people in my life. Belfast, Ireland, under British colonialism. We know that you went there. We know that you got the Irish Republican Socialist Party to support your demand for reparations and also to support the struggle that you've been waging to get peoples around the world to force the demand that the United States ratify the Genocide Convention of the United Nations. We know that. We know you've done all of that, but the Russians paid you to do this stuff. Right? So that doesn't matter. That liquidates every question. They liquidate the democratic questions by saying garbage like that. They say what we've done is weaponize free speech. How the hell do you weaponize free speech? That's our crime. We weaponize free speech. We got it like a club and we beat them upside the head with it. Beat them upside the head with free speech. We say that we are in this peculiar situation as Africans under colonial domination in this country, being leaders of the fight for free speech, the fight to make the United States live up to the Constitution that it wrote. Here we are being oppressed and colonized, fighting for freedom, and having to lead the struggle against America in order to uphold the democratic values that it says it believes in. That is willing to kill countries and drop bombs on people to defend, they say. So we weaponize free speech. And of course, what we've done is challenge the opinions that many people have and the established narrative that comes from the social system. And that's what the people are the power. And when they put me in jail, when they arrest me, when they come to my house at 5 o'clock in the morning, when they come to Carmen Akile's house and try to keep her from talking, Jesse Nevel and Penny Hess, they're not just trying to keep me from talking, they are trying to keep you from hearing. Yes. You understand? This is not just an attack on me to say something, it's an attack on your right to hear what I have to say. And this is the struggle we're involved in. I appreciate y'all being here so much, and I'm self-critical, Sarah, for breaking discipline and talking much too long. Uhuru. Forward, not one step backwards, not one step backwards. We are not retreating, we are forwarding the struggle of African and colonized people here and around the world. Ease, relate to, adelante, siempre, forward ever. All right.
Let's have another round of applause for Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you so much for that profound presentation. Wow. So Johan, I'm so glad you could join me up here, comrade. We need to take some action now. And I'm really glad to be joined by Johan Bedingfield of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, who is the coordinator of this event tonight. And we've heard so many powerful presentations tonight, and we've talked to some of you out doing outreach. And many of you might recognize this term, take the pledge of reparations to African people. Some of you, we met on an outreach table and you signed the pledge of reparations. Some of you contributed and you expressed your solidarity with this just demand from the African community. And we salute you for having done that and contributed towards the fundraising goal of the Days of Reparations. And we want to acknowledge and thank people who've done that. People like, of course, like you, Johan Bedingfield. You've contributed already so much. We want to thank Peg Keefe. And we want to thank other people like Sarah Rittersfall, Allison Haney, Sarah Edwards, Janice Kant, Chess Henry. I'll say Peg Keefe again, because you donated twice already. So Uhuru to that. Ann Leslie, Rain Christie, Wendy Snyder, Zachary, Taylor Anderson, Lisa Trunzo. I think there's other people who have contributed, and I may be leaving some folks out. So I want to thank everyone who's been a part of building this event. And tonight we have a chance to participate in taking action for reparations as a revolutionary demand. Raise your hand out in the audience if you believe that reparations are owed to African people. Uhuru. So let's take that and let's make that a reality. Comrade Johan.
Reparations means repair the damage that 10 years has slavery, direct murder, torture, and untold suffering that shine. The African people is satisfied cause for reparations to go towards the front of black industry. The APEC Royal Foundation of Industry African working class economy. Next slide.
Uhuru, and I forgot to say next slide after I spoke, so we should be on slide 4 now. Thank you to, I believe, Len, who's doing the slides. So we heard about the CARICOM study, I believe, and actually, anyway, yeah, the $130 trillion is owed by the latest calculation, the most up-to-date study, using the methodology from the World Tribunal on Reparations developed by Chairman Omali Yeshitela to conclude that amount is owed to Africans in the Caribbean, the amount of $130 trillion, exceeding the GDP of the world economy. Next slide. So tonight, let's contribute towards raising the $30,000 in reparations for Black Star Industries that's part of this national speaking tour. Every dollar contributes toward building the party, building the economic infrastructure of the revolutionary African anti-colonial movement to take back everything that belongs to African people, because all of it must go back into the hands of African people. Next slide.
Our yours tonight is $2,500. It is as the tonight, a reality of security to Black Star Industry. That's time. While we are talking about the taxes, is going to bring you an envelope in price card. I want you to start thinking about what you can do towards the show to raise $2,500 in reparations for Black Star Industry tonight. You can start by going on your phone to Uhuru Solidarity.org/pay/reparations to make your contribution. I'm confident you will pass this job. Next time. What is Black Star Industries? of BSI. BSI is the economic engine and the African people is justified. It's kind of like it's building the black power economy for colonization. That's why. The goal of BSI is to begin the process of building an economic system for African people. The mission of BSI is building economic development in commerce in between African people online. That's right.
Uhuru, that's right. So, Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela has said that nothing will stop the Uhuru movement from building the independent African anti-colonial economy. Deputy Chair Ona also said that the July 29th, 2022 FBI attack on our movement represented an assault against our politics of anti-colonialism, against the work that we've done, that the people have come to know, to love, become a part of, contribute to, defend and support these institutions and programs. So let's make that true tonight by raising the $2,500 for Black Star Industries. Who here can contribute the $2,500 for Black Star Industries right now so that we can surpass our goal tonight? We want people online as well. Yeah, this goes for anyone online, anyone in the room, and we want people to really think about that, because we know, as white people, there are resources hoarded in our community. And in previous events, we've had individual donors who have contributed the entirety of the goal. So we know that in the context of $130 trillion that is owed to African people, this is a drop in the bucket. All right, well, how about $1,000? Can anyone here tonight or online do $1,000? All right, how about $500? Is there anyone here tonight that can contribute $500? I see a hand in the back. I see Janet. Can you say your name? Janet. Thank you. Amazing. So we've got $500 from Janice. And is there anyone else that wants to match Comrade Janice? Johan with $500. That's $1,000 we've reached so far. Who else can do $500 tonight? All right, Peg in the back is going to do $500. It's amazing. Go home, Peg. Anyone else want to join and make it 2,000 so far? I think we're up to. All right. We're at 1,500. We're at 1,500, right? So 500 more will make it 2,000, right? Yeah. All right. How about 250? Is there anyone here tonight or online? We have Pop Lancaster in the front. All right. Uhuru Pop, $500. I mean, $250. 250 on the scale. Not trying to coerce you. That is amazing. So is there anyone else for 250 tonight or online? And I need to be checking my phone, make sure there's no message. I hope people will let me know if something's coming in online. All right. We got $50 from Ruby online. All right, Ruby, $50. Right on. Right on. Let me go up a bit though and ask if there's anyone here tonight that can do $100 towards our goal. Right here. Jesse Nevel, Uhuru. All right, thank you. And we have right here in the front, for your name? Lucky. Oh my God, Lucky. Lucky. Of course, Lucky. And we have Sarah and myself. We're gonna do $100 as well. So Uhuru, right on. Can't believe I didn't recognize Lucky. That's embarrassing. All right. Anyone else for 100 tonight? Is there anyone in the audience that can do $50 tonight? All right, everyone. Well, this has been really, really impressive. What is our total so far? We are at $2,100. $2,100. So we're just what, $400 away from our goal. I know we're going to do that, and we want you to continue contributing. There's going to be a basket passed around if we have someone to do that, possibly, or there is a basket going around with envelopes.
It's been passed.
So excellent. So continue to contribute, and thank you everyone who has contributed so far.
You got a hand in the back?
We got a hand in the back. Yes.
I'm gonna contribute $40 for my cash app.
$400? $40. I'm so sorry.
$40.
I'm steady. I'm selling people.
Be careful.
Honest mistake.
Could you tell us your name, the audience? Jill.
Jill.
And
Thank you so much, Jill.
And I'm jumping up here.
Yeah, jump up.
I've got some exciting news. First of all, I want to salute everybody who has contributed to raising $2,140 and continue to go to uhurusolidarity.org/pay-reparations. You can go right on your phone right now and make your contribution, or if you're online, go to the website. You can do, again, by cash or make checks out to Uhuru. And I'm really excited to announce that we have comrades watching this event right now at a viewing party in Minneapolis. And even before this event, the USM in Minneapolis had their own goal to raise $4,000 for the Days of Reparations campaign for Black Star Industries. They achieved that powerful goal. So we want to salute our comrades in Minneapolis. I also want to say, those comrades have been so inspired by this event tonight, by the incredible presentations. And I just want to say, the chairman's presentation was magnificent. Uhuru, the Chairman Omali Yeshitela, that our comrades in Minneapolis have sent in towards our goal tonight, $1,000 reparations to Black Star Industries. Shout out to Leah Fifield, Lisa Watson, Sarah Ritterspa, and all of the members of USM in Minneapolis. And they have sent us a really powerful statement that I want to quickly read before we get out of your way. And I want to also appreciate all of you for sticking around, because there is one final amazing speaker still on the program tonight, which is Director Akile. It's not something you want to miss. So we'll wrap this up now, but I just want to read this statement sent in by Leah on behalf of USM Minneapolis. It says, "We are sending in 1,000 on behalf of the Minneapolis comrades. We are watching the live stream tonight at our viewing party at my home. We are sending these funds because the struggle for Palestinian liberation and African liberation within the US and around the world are one and the same. We unite with overturning the colonial legacy we as white settler colonizers have inherited and continue to profit from. We recognize this country was built through stolen African people and labor on stolen indigenous land. What we are witnessing in Palestine is the same ruthless settler colonialism that created the so-called United States. We are proud to work under the leadership of the anti-colonial vanguard as realized in the African People's Socialist Party and say, hands off the Uhuru free. Free, free Palestine and reparations now. Uhuru." And also let people know that you can contribute anonymously. If you don't want to announce, you can contribute anonymously, and before the event is done tonight, we will come back up and announce the full amount that we collectively raised in reparations to African people tonight. Uhuru.
That's it for us. Thank you so much to everyone who made reparations a reality tonight. And thank you, Johan. Thank you, Chair Jesse. Uhuru. So I am gonna put this back here, and I'm very honored at this time to invite up to the stage the Director of Communications for the African People's Socialist Party, Akile Anayi. Uhuru.
Hands off Uhuru!
Hands off Africa!
Hands off Uhuru!
Hands off Africa!
Long live Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Long live Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
All right, Uhuru, I know you've got some energy still left in you, so thank you so much for participating in this very powerful program, this incredible event. And just like every presentation that started off, just really saluting, first of all, And I don't even know how I'm gonna come up here and try to make this presentation after the brilliant presentation that was just given by our leadership. We need to have to salute our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Uhuru Chairman, and just the powerful breakdown of, just this point where we are in history and how we got here, and just the profound leadership that you provided for more than 60 years, not just to the African liberation struggle, but as we know, the African liberation struggle as the lead of the whole anti-colonial, international revolution, that is transforming the world right as we have this discussion. And I also want to join in saluting Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela, as we've stated up to now, who's leading the economic engine, the front of the anti-colonial African economy, where we're building it, because we're not just talking about a new world. We're in the process of building that new world. We don't just talk about it, we do it, we make it happen. And all the work that we are doing right now, because the chairman said we intend to be self-governing. That's not just a wish we make. That's not just a dream we have, but we are standing in self-determination right here in the Quabble Hall, and that is what Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela makes happen every single day, is part of building this independent African economy and a self-determining African government. That is what we are fighting for. That's what we believe in, and it's our practice. It's why we are here today. So I just wanted to join in saluting Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela, and of course, wanting to salute the Uhuru, the remainder of the Uhuru 3, Comrade Penny Hess, of the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, Jesse Nevel, and to the organizers of this event, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and all of you for coming out and participating. I see comrades, and I have to acknowledge the veterans in this room, Comrade Chimaranga Silumbao, Pop Lancaster, Comrade Lucky, been in the trenches. And I also wanted to recognize also Tampa SDS, also the Florida new young lords are in the building today. So thank you. And I also, want to let people know that these incredible presentations that you've heard today, and the speakers that you heard today, including the Uhuru 3 and Tampa 5, Lauren Pinheiro and Comrade Gia, will be at the Black People's March on Washington, D.C. on November 4th. And you still have a chance to get on the bus with the St. Pete Force contingent that's leaving out of here and going to Washington, D.C. on November 4th. So if you want to be a part of this historic, pivotal moment in history and be at the Black People's March on the White House, please, please, please come see me at the end of this so we can get you signed up to get on that bus. But just being able to quickly say, something that's already been said of how the world has completely changed. And there is no going back. No going back. And the reason why there's no going back is because finally we have an explanation that makes sense. And that explanation is African internationalism. It has helped us to understand the world and how we got here and what it takes for us to get out of it. It actually provides a to what end, because we don't just protest for protest's sake. We don't just send people on these endless missions of running on the treadmill and, like Chairman says, starting over every single time this major uprising in the world happens. No, that is not the trajectory that we're on. We're in the process of changing the world, and in order to change the world, you have to have an explanation that explains how we got here, and that explanation has to give you a to what end. It has to say, where are we going? And African internationalism, Chairman Omali Yeshitela has made it clear. The colonial mode of production is not a sustainable system. Look what it requires in order to survive, to thrive. It requires drone strikes. It requires the bombing, the genocide of the Palestinian people. It requires the incarceration of Africans being locked up right here in this country. It requires the colonization, the exploitation, and oppression of world's people. That's what it requires. And if you are opposed to that, if you say you are opposed to that reality, and that you want to see freedom, that you want to see justice, that you want to see peace in the world, you have to know that peace cannot come where colonialism exists. There cannot be peaceful coexistence with our colonizer. There cannot be peaceful coexistence with an oppressor. That is not possible. The oppressor is a parasite. It feeds off the blood, it sucks the blood, it requires the oppression and exploitation in order to thrive, in order to live. How can you coexist with that? And how can you say that that system is sustainable, a system born through genocide, rape, pillage, theft, system. And the primary reason why it's not sustainable is because colonized people who make up the pedestal refuse to live under that domination, refuse to be stepped on, refuse to continue to remain the pedestal for somebody else to keep sucking our blood. The fact is we have made a determination that we will be free, we will have our resources, and we will produce and reproduce life for ourselves, and we will put history back on the right track by doing so.
Take the cover off.
Take the covers off. And that's really important what the chairman just said, because we were attacked precisely because we're taking the covers off. And all these assaults is being made on the rights of free speech of African and colonized people, and on those who are brave enough to stand on the right side of history. That is a statement of weakness on the part of the ruling class. That is you have this military, this mighty military that's sending billions and billions of dollars U.S. stamp on the bombs that are being dropped right now in Palestine. You have this huge war machine, and they come and they flash bang grenade the house of Chairman Omali Yeshitela. In the African working class, they go and assault 5 protesters at the University of South Florida. Is that straight? And they go and change laws. As Chairman said, laws are the opinion of the ruling class, and it changes whenever it's a matter of convenience. So today, no, we haven't done anything illegal, but they will redefine the law tomorrow to make it possible to throw us under the jail. And that's exactly what they're trying to do today. So you have something like a Ron DeSantis who would change laws and make it impossible for you to protest. But why? Why do they not want you to be able to talk about this? Why do they want you to have access to some kind of curriculum that may possibly set history straight, that might possibly not start world history at the point where Europe comes into existence? Why don't they want you to have access to that information? Because part of what that information does is it gets you to this to what end that we're talking about today. It gets you to come to the conclusion that this social system is not sustainable, and that it's not only been responsible for hundreds of years, for centuries of killing, of maiming, of raping, and all the atrocities we've talked about up to now, that it's not only responsible for that, it's responsible for killing and driving the planet into further despair. That's what this system is responsible for. And so we have a responsibility, and it's always been recognized by the African People's Socialist Party for 50 years. We have a job to do. That's to complete the Black Revolution of the 1960s. That's to put power in the hands of African people. That's for African people and colonized people to be free, and for the world to be free of this horrific parasitic social system that we know now as a colonial mode of production. That's what we set out to do. That's what we had the brains to do. Nobody else needed to tell us that we needed to do it. We knew it because we were all the ones catching hell, experiencing it, and had to develop a strategy to transform our conditions. So that's what we're in the business of. Like Chairman Omali Yeshitela said, we're not just in the business of explaining the world, we have a responsibility to change it. And we have to recognize that the world is changing, and whether you like it or not, this is where we're going. And African and colonized people will be free, and we will lead our own struggle. And we want you to come with us, and we want you to be on the side of this history of a positive vision for the future, where there does not have to be anybody living at the expense of anybody else, where there doesn't have to be, in a 3-week span of time, 2,000 Palestinian babies killed. And in Africa right now, babies, being killed, and whole communities being destroyed, and Africans right here being locked up by the thousands every single day, being killed right here in this country. And you don't have to go all the way to Palestine to fight against what's happening to Palestine, and to fight. You can fight the war right here at home. The war right here at home. And you can be a part of fighting. So I'm sure that's my time. And I just I really again want to express appreciation for all of you being here. I want to stress, especially for all the brothers and sisters in the room, we have to join organization. We're going to lead this struggle. It's our responsibility. If we're going to know freedom, if our children are going to know freedom, then we have a responsibility to fight. And we have to be a part of organization in order to do that, to have the political leadership to give us, to provide us a trajectory to say where we have to go, to join organization. You can join us today. Join the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, join the African People's Socialist Party, and get with us on this bus to Washington, D.C., to the Black People's March on the White House. Be a part of history, put your hands on it, and be responsible for changing the world. So thank you all so much. Again, salute my leadership and that profound presentation, but beyond the presentation, just the continued leadership that he provides for the future. This is where we're going. And it is extremely positive. We're extremely optimistic. And we know that these charges are going to be dropped, that they're bogus, that they cannot stick, and that this is just a desperate attempt for the colonial ruling class to maintain its power, to maintain hegemony, a hegemony that is losing all throughout the world. We are not confused, and we will win, comrades. We are winning. Hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, drop the charges, and free Palestine. Uhuru.
Let's have another round of applause for Director Yeshitela. Uhuru. I have to say, first of all, I'm a little self-critical because I don't feel like I gave you enough of an introduction before you came up here, but it's really a unique person in the world. I think probably only one person I could think of that could follow Chairman Omali Yeshitela. So I really salute that profound presentation. We want to move now to a Q&A session, but first, I have one last thing to squeeze in here, and that is Sheridan Murphy of the American Indian Movement and the Florida Indigenous Alliance sent me a solidarity statement, and we want to read that. Florida aims supports reparations to African people and stands in resolute solidarity with the African People's Socialist Party and the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. St. Petersburg, Florida. Statement reads, the American Indian Movement of Florida, AIM, is the state chapter of the International Indigenous Civil Human Treaty and Sovereignty Rights Movement, founded in 1968 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, that currently maintains non-governmental organization consultative status in the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Peoples. The Florida Indigenous Alliance is a statewide organization affiliated with the Florida AIM that works for both the rights of Indigenous people and to provide services, education, and awareness to the communities. As the colonial settler United States was founded on stolen land and violated each of the 374 treaties the United States signed with indigenous national governments. So the United States violated Field Order 15, providing each freed African family 30 acres and a mule. That agreement alone would have provided $6.5 trillion in reparations to African people in America for the kidnapping, torture, and enslavement of at least 10 million African peoples in the United States. Justice demands reparations to African people, just as it demanded land back to indigenous peoples. It was the labor of enslaved Africans that built the US White House, Congress, and much of the infrastructure of the United States. The US did this without compensating in any way the African population that did the work. After slavery was technically outlawed, Africans were denied access to economic advantages in the United States, and to this day, African people are often redlined, discriminated against, and lack the resources and the advantages of the colonial settler society. Reparations is due for not only the unjust, horrific enslavement of African people, but also for the continued suppression and repression of African people in the United States through Jim Crow and other laws, some of which still exist today. The American Indian Movement of Florida has, since its founding in 1986, stood in solidarity with the African People's Socialist Party and the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. And we note the FBI attacks on the APSP and the Uhuru Movement are simply a continuation of the FBI's attack on movements calling for liberation of their relatives, whether it's the APSP, Uhuru Movement, Black Panther Party, FLAN, Macheteros, Brown Berets, Crusade for Justice, or AIM. The attacks by the FBI acting as a colonial police force are the same. We recognize the disingenuous extra-legal attacks upon Omali Yeshitela, Penny Hess, and others of the Uhuru Movement are the same old song, and we salute those named in the indictment for their works leading to the colonial settler state needing to single them out and attack them. It's an honor to have stood beside you, and we will continue to do so. Uhuru. I want to thank the Florida American Indian Movement and Florida Indigenous Alliance for that powerful solidarity statement. And now I want to give anyone who's interested an opportunity to ask any questions or make a comment. Yes. Do you want to come on up here? Okay.
My father alluded to his daughter when she was a little girl. I'm not a little girl anymore, but I am Omali Yeshitela's firstborn daughter. And my name is Chairwoman. And I'm so proud of my father, my uncle, and everyone who has imparted into everyone's mind and who I am, and his blood runs through me. When my father stood up there, and my eyes, I saw my eyes. They are the same. So I had to stand to take a look around to make sure I was his only daughter here. And I am his only daughter here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're very, very happy you're here tonight.
I couldn't have been, I never would have been without him. He's the reason why, you know. Yes, he's the reason why.
The chairman's the reason we're all here.
Yes,
You know? We share your pride. Standing here.
Of course, I have my book.
Right on, right on. And if you are interested in getting that book, it's right over there at the table. Reparations Now. No, I mean to anyone else watching. Yeah.
I will.
Yeah.
Yes, this is my personal book.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Excellent. Is there anyone else that would like to?
I'm going to step out for a moment. I want to take this opportunity. This has been so dynamic. And the dynamics of it all. And yeah, the charges will be dropped.
Yes. Drop the charges.
Yes, and it's been over 60 years that you've been doing this.
Yes.
I know how old I am.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your statement. Appreciate you being here. Uhuru.
Step out and come back.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Are there any remarks from you, Chairman, or from Chairwoman Penny, or any of the other speakers? Closing remarks. Okay, that's what we're moving to now.
Okay.
Is Chairwoman Penny still on?
Yes.
Yes. See if Chairwoman Penny has any closing. Yeah. Chairwoman Penny Hess, do you have any closing remarks?
Wow, what a powerful, powerful event tonight. I'm so proud to be here as well, to be under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, to be able to be with the incredible Uhuru movement, African People's Socialist Party. I just want to say unity through reparations, Uhuru, and victory to African people, victory to the Palestinian people and all oppressed and colonized peoples on this planet. Uhuru.
The ideas in the heads of white people. We're fighting for power. And I think it's really important because that's been a trick bag that many oppressed people, especially Africans, have been locked into. that they would be engaged in this whole struggle against racism, which is actually the ideological foundation of the whole social system. That's the ideological foundation. That's the ideology that informs ordinary white people in a certain way that makes them participate in colonial domination of Africans and peoples around the world. We're struggling against colonialism. Yeah. So I wanted to make that point. And also, I think it's important to let you know that on today, it's really interesting just in terms of how these contradictions are roiling the world. On today, the City Council of Philadelphia just passed a resolution expressing appreciation for the African People's Education Defense Fund and the furniture store. We have a furniture store in Philadelphia for many, many, many years. And so this furniture store is closing. And so it's so beloved by the community that the City Council just provided a resolution in appreciation for that. And so this is the same organization that the government is attacking. So it's attacking us with one hand. It has to recognize the economic significance of economic projects that we're involved in. We created a farmer's market, and part of the farmer's market that we have in St. Louis, Missouri, is what's that entity called? What's that Department of Agriculture, funds that. So, this is just a wild war that they're making against us precisely because we're changing the things in our communities that the government won't do, can't do, and is embarrassed by the fact that we do it, because if we can do it, then it's a statement of what is possible or they could have done if they want to. And so, that's effectively what I want to say. I want to express appreciation to comrades who continue to work around this issue of Puerto Rico. I was with the Young Lords many, many years ago in New York when there's a struggle that they were involved in around, they had seized, I think it was, a church to initiate like a medical center, and they expected just a handful of people to show up. They were first to really organize, like the Puerto Rican population, a massive kind of way inside this country. And so I was there. They invited me to come and speak, and they thought it was just going to be a handful of people there, and end up standing on these sawhorses with a door put on top of it, and there were thousands of Puerto Ricans that are showing up, and it's an incredible struggle, and it continues today. Vieques is one example of it, and various other kinds of offensive things, because the colonizers do offensive things to our people. They experiment like with birth control and things like that on women in Puerto Rico, but some heroic Lola LeBron and so many other heroic figures out of that struggle. The colonial question is the question. That's the question. Why would a piece of territory, only 25 miles long, less than 3 miles wide, have battleships? They've got battleships in the Mediterranean. They've got at least 1,000 troops, American troops right now on the ground, and there are thousands of others waiting for that tiny situation, because it's the colonial question. It's the foundation of the whole damn social system, and always has been. And I just wanted to really express my appreciation. And also for the comrades from the 10 years ago, you were hit also by the FBI, Freedom Road organization. The work that you were doing essentially around the colonial question, Palestinians and what have you, and 10 years ago, hit hard, with a lot of people arrested and what have you, and nobody squealed. They wanted to force people, and like they did us. Yeah, why would they wait 9 months to indict us? Because they want to give us time to run. They attack us and hit you hard. They want you to run. Or they want you to come in and make a deal to confess to something that you didn't do so that you can just get them off of your back. And they want to take away the democratic space that we fought for. We fought for the right to be able to say this. Black people died. Black people, churches bombed and all kinds of things, the right to have this democratic space. And they want us to surrender this democratic space and go on the ground. Or take some other kinds of actions that would justify them wiping us out but only they know we exist. Only they and a handful of people know we exist, so they would use this, push us into some kind of situation if they could, that would justify murdering us as they are murdering right now Palestinian people. So Palestine is here. Palestine is everywhere. All the colonized people suffer the consequences because if you live under colonial domination, your oppressor will do to you what he wants to, when he wants to, if he wants to. So the thing is that we have to fight against all colonialism. Colonialism is the enemy. We have to defeat it. Thank you so much, comrades, brothers and sisters, for coming out. Let's forward to Washington, D.C., November 4th. And also drop the charges now. Free Palestine forever. The comrades from the Tampa 5, we down with you. You understand? We down with you. We locked arms. We're together in this thing, you know. So our objective has to be not just to complain and defend ourselves, but to kick the ass of the ruling class. Uhuru. You're looking at the future of the African People's Socialist Party. I guess you've heard that already. Yeah.
Uhuru is self-evident. Wow, what a powerful evening this has been. Thank you to everyone who came out. Thank you to our speakers, Chairman, Chair Jesse Nevel, Chairwoman Hess, Director Akili Anai, and Comrade Lauren Pinheiro from SDS and the Tampa 5. It was so great to have all of you here tonight, and thank you to everyone who came out in person and online. Some quick announcements before we close out. Sundays, tune in to Omali Taught Me Sunday Studies led by Chairman Omali Yeshitela at Omali Taught Me on YouTube, at The Burning Spear, or Facebook.com. Yes, Chairman.
So I just want to acknowledge DJ Eddie.
Oh,
my
yes.
man. Yeah. Trying to act like Michael Jackson sometimes. But I was listening to the radio, Black Power 96. Y'all don't listen to it, you ought to. I was listening to Rap Brown today on Black Power 96. It's interesting. And Stokely was there, as it was called at the time. Kwame Ture. Great presentation, great radio. Thank you so much, Comrade DJ Eddie.
Uhuru. DJ Eddie. Yeah, and tune in to Black Power 96.3 WBPU LP St. Petersburg. Also, what else do we have here? We have the Black People's March on the White House. That is November 4th. And I think there's still a possibility of you coming on the bus if you want to join the bus that's leaving from St. Petersburg. Be in touch with us and go to blackpeoplesmarch.com for more information. And if you want to join this movement of reparations to African people, of white solidarity with Black power, become a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement at uhurusolidarity.org/join, and come to our next open meeting of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, which is going to be Wednesday, November 8th at 6 p.m. That's Wednesday after we get back from the Black is Back March, 6 p.m. So did you announce how much we raised? And tonight, what is, you know what, I think it might, did we include the, there was 80, whatever it is, did Janice tell you the amount that came in the room? $3,285, everybody. Reparations in action. Well, one last thing, if people would like to be part of a group photo documenting this night, come on up. We're going to do it in front of this banner. Thank you so much, everyone. Uhuru.